We're going to be doing this as kind of a presentation slash going through the AMA questions that have already been submitted, but I'll be looking at the chat, and if you have something that you want to comment on or that inspires a question within you, feel free to put it in the comments. I've put together a document that outlines some pretty detailed answers to everything that was already asked in the Discord, and so we're going to go through each of that, and then I will go ahead and share this document in the chat, and I will share it when we put the recording out so that if you want to go through this document, you can do that. Let me just make sure nobody can delete it. Okay. One, thanks to Oni and Prez for submitting all these questions. These are great fodder for conversation. I think they're going to open up a lot of light on where we're headed with TRESR and the way that Andrew and I have been thinking about things along with the rest of the team. But the right place to start is probably that everything that we're going to talk about in this call stems from a phase shift, and that phase shift is that we are moving away from TRESR being a Web3 e-commerce shop and fine-tuning our incentive structure, including thinking about what bonus points actually is, so that we can support creators in building a business through incentivized action. So we're building out case study ventures with various projects. Another Space Odyssey is the first one that's been announced, and working with their team to basically identify all of the things that are required to take a project of that size and grow it into an international brand. What are all of the things that have to come up in that? And essentially what TRESR is becoming through a series of Google documents and processes that Andrew and I are creating with these case study ventures is a paint by numbers for creator businesses and brands. Eventually, that's going to surface itself into the actual user interface of the TRESR platform, and we're going to talk about what that's going to look like. But we're taking all of these learnings for the things to account for in these various brands and ultimately building out a process where somebody can join TRESR, they can raise their hand and identify where they're at on this kind of 7-stage journey of being a brand. And then the platform will present them with milestones and missions for them to go on in order to stair step their way into success. That's where all of this is headed. And we're going to speak into where we're at in that process, what it looks like, what's worked in our technology stack and what isn't working, and where we're pivoting to. But I just wanted to kind of set that frame. Andrew, is there anything that you would add to that?
Yeah. So basically what we're doing is dialing in the product and messaging market fit. So everybody knows the vision as based on how John's been sharing it for quite some time. I'm assuming a few years because I've only just come in last bits of it all. But what's needed then was to shift the product and messaging market fit so it actually does fully encompass and embody that full vision. And that's what this piece here that John's pointing about is the shift from Web3 e-commerce into the paint by numbers for creator brands. And this is from a business perspective of going, we need to shift that as how we're looking at things as a business. And that sets in life coaching and psychology and stuff, they talk about it as a frame. So it sets the frame that we then everything else works within, and getting this frame right means that we now go through everything else to bring it in alignment with that frame.
All right, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty where the recording in Discord stopped recording, and I didn't hit record on my computer until we had already gone through these first 3 questions. So we're going to morph into a rehashing of something that we talked about live on the call. This is now a new recording of Andrew and I going through these first 3 questions so that you have the proper context, and then we'll cut back in to the Discord audio. So this question is from Oni, and it's what are the projected revenue targets for the next 12 to 24 months? And what we were talking about is how we think a reasonable target is 250,000 to 500,000 in gross revenue over the next 12 months, with the caveat that right now we're not really making any revenue. And so the entire call, and especially the latter part when we get back into the official live event, is about this shift that we are making from the custom platform that we built and this kind of experiment that we had in becoming the Shopify of Web3. That was a flawed premise that we'll explore a lot in this call, but it's something that VCs and many of our advisors were telling us was the right move at the time a year ago. Well, what's happening is that Shopify is moving at lightning speed to integrate AI into what they're doing. And while we've been trying to play whack-a-mole with our custom e-commerce platform and figure out how to just send an email properly, Shopify has already formed a partnership with OpenAI and with Claude and is building out these things called MCP servers, which is basically like an API for AI. They're moving so quickly, and all of e-commerce is moving so rapidly towards AI integration that we're just not going to be able to compete at that level. So the reframe that we've had over our last few calls is shifting from being an e-commerce shop into being a creator platform. And so that's what we were calling the paint by numbers for building a creator-based business. Now that we can focus all of our developer and brain trust power towards that gamification, which is the back end of the NFC experience, we'll be able to get back to what has historically brought in revenue, which is event activations, which is wholesale merchandise, and people that are really interested in building a business around community, because essentially Web3 as an industry was a miscalculation. It's basically like saying the industry the internet was an industry. No, the internet is an underlying set of technology that allows you to have global reach, where Web3 is an underlying set of technology that allows you to incentivize a community of people to align actions. So I'm giving that context because all of our revenue is going to be based on that repositioning of how we're thinking about treasure. And what that's going to look like, and what we'll talk about in the rest of this video, is taking that gamification, the psychological structure, the SOPs, which is standard operating procedures that we've seen as we're building out these different creator brand case studies and talking to all of these different partners for what they want to see, how they want this tech to work. We'll be structuring that into a Shopify app that has a recurring revenue layer to it. So that's what I'm about to get into. But Andrew, anything that you'd add to that?
Yeah, I don't remember where we've got to this point within the thing, so I'll just reiterate it again anyway. From the VC route, and our other advisors, their advice was around the realms of you should become this function. So you should become a platform, you should become the equivalent of Shopify, and it's just function route thing. Whereas to truly build a scalable brand, you need to be based on who are you really being of service to? What's the identity that you're really going towards? And that's why we've done this whole reframe. We've gone, well, instead of being the shop platform with merch and tech and all around the function sides of things, we're saying, no, we're about creator brands. And everything we're doing is to the service of creator brands. And that opens up the field of who we can partner with in the process. Because when it was a shop platform, partnering with Shopify didn't make sense. And it was like, well, Shopify's not even giving us what we need. We need to build our own platform. And that's where the advice came from. So by turning around and saying, nope, we're now about creator brands and building a business in a box for creator brands, which is a paint by numbers business in a box. And being able to create that as the ultimate what we're selling, then our whole platform is to derive with that. And now who we partner with, Shopify becomes the instant makes sense to go back to that. And from the beginning, we had success with it until we shifted off because of the advice and everything that came with it. So this whole reframe is actually doing it from a business perspective, because the problem we had was actually a business problem, which then got when you apply technology, you scale stuff. So we scaled a business problem is what it really come down to. And now we're having to undo that and
go back to getting those results that we were getting and really double down on, no, we're here to support creators.
Yeah, because when the e-commerce store was built on WooCommerce, which was a fully functioning e-commerce platform, we were able to run ads, we were able to do marketing, we were able to send out our email blasts, and we were doing, I think our biggest month was 35,000 a month in sales. So things were starting to get momentum. What happened is we got hamstringed, and none of that marketing stuff, none of that split testing was possible in the new platform. And it was always, oh, it's coming, we'll be able to do it. But the not having the ability to move quickly as a marketer massively limits what we can do with our marketing budget. And so moving back to Shopify should allow us to at least see what we were seeing when we were on WooCommerce, and I think move even further ahead, because all of the new energy in e-commerce is around Shopify, around this partnership that they have with OpenAI, and around these MCP servers, which essentially allow somebody to order a product from within Claude or from within ChatGPT without ever having to visit the website. I mean, we're literally in such a paradigm shift right now when it comes to how people get information online that we may very well be in a position 18 months from now where websites just aren't a thing anymore. All the web, it happens through these AI agents, through these AI portals that are using these MPC servers in order to get data from what used to be called a website. So I know that's a dramatic statement, but that is the state of where we're at. And it's the reason that we're shifting back towards Shopify so that we can gain control over our marketing again and ride the wave of where AI is taking e-commerce, while we focus on the thing that agency partners have always wanted from us, which is, how do I get my customers to have to have shelf life beyond the event that they were at? How do I turn somebody that I met at an event into somebody that I engage with on a daily basis? That's what the TRESR Tech is really good at. And now that we're not competing with Shopify, we can basically partner into their ecosystem and tap into the network effect of all the people that are there. So go ahead.
And not only are we no longer competing with Shopify, by repositioning ourselves purely to be the creator brand level and creating a platform for them, we become we have the possibility of becoming shop agnostic. So sure, we're starting with Shopify because that's where the majority of people are heading towards, but it doesn't stop us going back to WooCommerce and some of these other ones in the future as well. And the shift really allows us to stop competing and start collaborating, because what we're owning is the what does it need to become a creator brand?
Yep. So I've highlighted a low, mid, and high case for what revenue in the store could look like. I've run Shopify stores before that are doing more than 100,000 a month. It's just a matter of getting your conversion rate in so that you're making more money than you spend in advertising. And I think that now that we're finally going to be able to move that the speed that a marketer needs to move, split test, do all of these things, we're going to be able to find the sweet spot where our ad budget is outperforming and we're bringing in revenue through the e-commerce store again. Then what we'll do is we'll daisy chain all of these existing tools together to kind of figure out what the product market fit is. We'll essentially partner with other app providers to deliver this end outcome experience that we want so that we can immediately go and sell an agency something for $25,000. And then as we see what works, as we look at that data from all of these disparate apps that we're chaining together, we'll say, okay, now we see what the real offering is, and we'll strip out only what we need from all that functionality, and that will become the Shopify app, the TRESR Shopify app that we charge a monthly fee for. As we'll talk about later in the conversation, if you have a TRESR key, this will be something that you get access to either for free or at a discounted rate, because we want to anchor more value into the keys wherever we can. But what this does is it gives us a mechanism for creating recurring revenue that allows us to better project our numbers, to better project what kind of buybacks can happen in the bonus pool, and better project how we should grow and navigate our team. I'm going to say it again because I don't know if this part got cut out of the video, but one of the biggest learnings that I think we've had and that we've shared as consultants in some of these other projects that we're working with is we initially made some mistakes in TRESR because we were classifying NFT or TRESR key minting as revenue rather than as a Kickstarter campaign, rather a seed fund. And because of that, we emotionally felt like we had found a deeper product market fit than we had actually found. We were bringing in a lot of revenue. Ava Labs has spent tens of thousands, almost $100,000 with us. So there's definitely a product market fit there. But because we were getting quote unquote revenue coming from key sales, we miscalculated how quickly we could expand our team and what we could spend on our developers. And we thought about everything from a different lens than you would have thought about if we had only been seeing e-commerce revenue and agency revenue as the revenue source. So I'm highlighting that because that's a learning that we're not going to we won't make that mistake again, and we're advising all of the other projects that we're working with to do the same. But now that we're stripping back down to the baseboards and looking at, well, product market fit means that the entire team is paid for by the service offering, that there's enough demand there to actually make a profit. And so that seems like a simple concept. We should have already known that, but it did cloud our judgment somewhat, seeing or skewing our numbers by seeing key sales come in addition to that revenue. Anything that you'd add to that, Andrew?
Yeah, we didn't really highlight this in the actual Discord piece, but I'll go a little bit further into it a bit more. Is that all these mistakes that we've made, that we're not the only ones. This is actually a massive industry trend. But the interesting thing is that having made all the mistakes and gone through them and now see what the mistake is and why, as John said, we're starting to share it with the people we're working with, but what we're also doing is distilling that down into playbooks that allow us to actually utilize things correctly. And this is a part of the TRESR agency because, remember, we're doing a business in a box. So in order to do a business in a box, we then need to recalculate what a business model looks like for the new world. And the new world being the third wave of crypto. And the third wave is, what does it look like when it becomes mainstream? What does it look like when a business is running on the crypto economy? And not just tokenomics, but the full crypto economy, like shifting across to that, what does that really look like? You can see it from maybe a banking platform perspective, but the element of NFTs as a startup campaign, sure, there may be a few other people that have been talking about it, we're part of the ones now that are talking about it, but it's not mainstream as a concept. And even the ASO as an example, because we're framed as being a Web3 business, when they were getting advice on, well, your NFTs are dried up, it's a dead project, let it go. And that was one of the things they were considering before they came in with us. And when we came in and had a look at it, one of the first things I pointed out was, no, your keys are the sale, like you're a seed fund. And where we now need to do is look at, where's your actual revenue. So this is what got you going. This is what started to get some momentum. And that's what seed capital is for when you start a business. Now, where's our other revenue pieces? Yeah. And how do we do merch? How do we do more? So anyway, the main point is that we're building this out into playbooks that then come down into another sellable thing for TRESR.
Exactly. And so then the third arm of that revenue layer, so the paint by numbers kind of creator brand business in a box is connected into the Shopify app and the gamification of how somebody actually starts to make money through the TRESR platform. And then on top of that are these activations with these campaigns. And this is what all of the agencies are looking for. This is the Ava Labs of the world, the Van X of the world, the music festivals and film festivals of the world. And so I've highlighted what it looks like to have one activation versus 5+ a month, but this is where we can really scale revenue, but it requires that we can deliver the thing that all of these different agencies want, which is massive engagement on the timeline. And that's where all of this is going to be pointing. We've been saying this for a long time, but moving into this new partnership with Shopify and riding this wave of AI e-commerce, where we're controlling how these campaigns play out, is going to be, I think, the piece where all of these things that we put together connects in the right way and allows us to really start gaining some momentum. All right. So what does that look like next 12 months? 250,000 to 500K once this is all dialed in. I think that we escalate quickly once we get the gamification stuff in place. And fortunately, because AI is at the center of Shopify right now, there's already a ton of apps and momentum around how we can quickly build there. And we already have an API integration built in from our existing database there. So we're getting all of that figured out, and we'll share more as we have it. What does an aggressive target look like if we can dial in this product market fit? 1 million to 3 million isn't out of the cards, because essentially we'll be able to tap into businesses that already have massive communities. These are YouTubers. These are conferences. These are festivals that are already looking for an activation for tens of thousands of people, which means shirt sales goes up, and it means that there's a premium paid as a campaign on top of that, which is the agency fee to engage these playbooks that allow for a shirt to equate to engagement. Anything else that you'd add there, Andrew? All right. Question 2. How will TRESR scale activations beyond Ava Labs and Van Egg? Any new deals in the pipeline? I think we've already outlined this, but Another Space Odyssey is one of those projects that we're working with right now to really figure out what does it take to take someone from this level of universe that they've already built out, this level of IP that they've already created, and bring in an actual revenue source. Like we were talking about, most NFT projects think that their revenue is the NFTs, but the NFTs are there to basically fuel the team to be able to figure out what the actual revenue source is, what the actual PMF is, product market fit. And we're helping Another Space Odyssey recognize all of these different revenue opportunities that live in comic book distribution, board games, card games, all of these ancillary products that build out their world. Think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as the prime example of what this looks like. And so we're putting together these playbooks and these standard operating procedures within Another Space Odyssey that then become a template that we can gamify against in the Shopify app, so any other brand can follow these same steps. Turbo is another token that we talk a little bit more about at the end of this call, but they're a meme coin that has 114,000 followers on Twitter. A lot of their community are designer based, and so we're looking at ways to partner with them so that we can drive their community to these events and have them be, have 300 people show up in Turbo t-shirts so that people know about this meme coin, and at the same time driving those designers to remix and do different designs of that merchandise in the TRESR platform. So all of this to say that as we build out this new app ecosystem connected to Shopify, we'll finally be able to deliver on the gamification side, and that will naturally have an organic lift on who we attract into the project. Andrew, go ahead.
Cool. We actually didn't say this on the call, and I realized a really quick way to distill this down. We need to think about TRESR's product as being a business model. It's an intangible product. And what we were selling as a product before, which is the shirts and everything like that, those are the sub-products or the tangible pieces that help us sell the intangible one. So when as we're moving across to being a business in a box and the whole creators paint by numbers version of it, the product we're selling is a business model. And this is where the strategy of going and getting case study ventures to delve into the worlds of the creators and help adjust the technology and everything that we got going on to really fit their needs, is because we're solving business problems. And that's what a business model does, is it creates a structure to automatically solve business problems. So the way to really think about it for yourselves now is that what TRESR's selling is a business model. And it's one where we're heading with that business model. And we're, as we said, we're partnering with people to develop it out and make it work, including solving our own problems with it as well. But where we're going with it is to build it to a level that people know to come to us for it. And a whole platform just automates them being able to do that and engage with us and connect so much further.
Yeah, and we say it later in the call. We don't need 10,000 people on the platform that are having success for this to get viral traction. We need 10 people that are actually crushing it, killing it in their revenue, and that's naturally going to bring in a follow-on effect where everyone wants to be involved. And the more that we can translate that business model that we're selling into a sticky gamified functionality where there's badges and you know exactly the scaffolding and next step that you need to take in order to hit the next milestone, this becomes very sticky. And does it mean that we can become one of the top 1% of apps on Shopify? Does it mean we can become one of the top 10%? There's a huge range of recurring revenue that happens between these apps, and this is thousands of apps that we're talking about in this range here. But we're looking at 3,000 a month to 250,000 a month is what some of these apps are bringing in recurring revenue as they get added to more and more Shopify stores. And so this is a huge pool of attention and revenue that we can tap into now that Shopify has partnered with ThirdWeb and they have the commerce kit that wasn't available when we started. Now that they partnered with OpenAI and they built out this MCP server, that makes it a lot easier for us to integrate and do the things that we want to do. Now that they've added store value, so one of the things that we couldn't do last year was we couldn't accept NFT couponing in Shopify because they wouldn't let us build out store credit for a user. That's something that just 3 weeks ago they added, which allows us to have that functionality. So woulda, coulda, shoulda, things are aligning now with the tech where we can do a lot of the things that we wanted to do on Shopify in the first place, but ended up having to go elsewhere until it was ready. So question 3, and then this will be the final question before we jump back into our originally scheduled programming. What percentage of revenue is recurring versus one time? Right now, all of our revenue is one time only. It comes from brand activations, merch drops, and custom campaigns. Everything that we're talking about in taking this business model, gamifying it, and baking it into the Shopify app so that you can add these campaigns on the back end of your NFC scans, track all of those in your new dashboard. And just to make sure it's clear, because I don't know if we talk about it later in the video, the platform, as far as you being able to come onto TRESR.com, have your account, have your profile, use the product creator tool, all of that stays exactly the same. The advantage of being on Shopify is that when you grow in that model on TRESR.com, where your brand now is doing $10,000 a month, well, there might be an opportunity for you to open your own e-commerce store on your own domain. And this makes it super easy for you to just install the TRESR Shopify app on your own store and pick everything up where you left off in the creator tool on TRESR.com. So that's kind of how this would transition as you move through the stages of influence. And that's what's going to create this SaaS revenue or this Shopify app recurring revenue that will come from us not having to play whack-a-mole with building an e-commerce platform anymore, not having to compete with Shopify, just taking all the R&D, the billions of dollars that Shopify has run through its system to become the best e-commerce platform out there. Let's just use that to become excellent marketers and then spend all of our dev time developing out the gamification, which is really what the value add that we're offering is. One thing that we talked about that maybe we'll play around with now that it's easier to add products is, when I was at Avalanche Summit, I did these propaganda Nicolas Cage flyers that had a NFC chip connected to them. Well, maybe somebody else wants to do something like that and they want to attach NFC chips to a postcard or something. Maybe we should have kits that creators can order where if they just want to order the NFC chips with some kind of a holographic sticker on it, maybe we make that available. You let us know in general chat if you think that's a good idea, but that's something that can be an additional form of revenue if we have people buying these chips as kits on a regular basis, in addition to their customers buying their merch designs. And recurring revenue, when we have it, again, allows us to better project what our expenses and profit is going to be. And this is where we can start thinking about leaderboards and prize pools and scan rituals that connect into some kind of an ongoing prize. Think about having some kind of a banner on the site that says this shirt gives you access to a $5,000 a month prize pool, and all you have to do is scan to get on the leaderboard, and the top people on the leaderboard get raffle tickets to potentially win these prizes. We can also bring in sponsors. When we can go to a sponsor and say, hey, we're getting 100,000 scans a day, that's a really sticky thing where a sponsor will be like, well, that's worth $10,000 to me, and we can get people to sponsor these prize pools. All of this has been something that has existed in the ether of this project, that lives in the white paper. And because we played so much whack-a-mole with the old e-commerce platform, we just never really had the chance to really dial this in and focus on it. Now we're moving all dev attention, all team attention to building out this gamification side and tapping into some of the existing tools on Shopify so that we can do it quickly. And then finally, what I'll say is that the Shopify app probably has tiers to it. Maybe it's $19 a month. Maybe it's $29 a month, $49, $99, $2.99, $6.99, depending on where you're at in your journey. But one of the things that we should be monitoring to determine what tier you need to be on is, well, how many of your customers are scanning on a regular basis? How much engagement are you actually getting? And so starting to think about usage-based NFC billing, like some of these other SaaS products do with credits, is something that we're going to be thinking about. So over the next 12 months, what does that look like for recurring revenue? We think that maybe 20 to 30% of revenue could shift towards recurring as we roll out some of this stuff on Shopify. And eventually these things will probably balance out, where as we add more and more stores, the recurring revenue is going to keep going up. We feel that the NFC experience is going to be sticky enough that people are going to want to keep paying that monthly subscription rate, which means we're going to have super low churn, which is the dream of any SaaS product. And so does revenue meet this equilibrium where it's 50-50 recurring revenue versus merchandise sales? It could end up being in a place like that as we add more and more stores. So we're moving from just a e-commerce merchandise platform to helping brands build an actual business through a gamified business plan. That's basically what the TRESR Shopify app is going to be, is what we've been calling scaffolding, a group of steps that help you hit the right milestones so that you can grow your business. And ultimately, that means more people on the back end of the NFC that are scanning. So I think that's the three questions that got cut out of our initial live stream. Is there anything else that you want to add to this, Andrew, before we go back to regularly scheduled programming?
Not to what you just said, but just to reiterate on one point, we're looking to shift the association in people's minds from TRESR being a merch business into the place to come to build a creator brand. So when they think, oh, I'm got something here, I want to build a brand about this, their instant thought is TRESR. That's the association we want. That's where we're heading with this, where we're focusing on who a creator is and what do they need to go through the evolutionary journey, which I think that's a question further down. There's a point in it that goes to the side on that. And what do they need as outcomes to go through that? And then who are we partnering with on a tech level? And as we said, by shifting away from being a shop, we still need to account for having a shop. We still need the merchant sides of things as well. And that's where we're doing our partnerships with that and having the possibility to become more agnostic on the things that we don't need to be a specialist in, like shops. Don't reinvent that. Go to Shopify, add in the WooCommerce and whatever it looks like in the future with MCP sides of things, and really focus our attention on what matters, but build the revenue up through these ones so that right now we can actually pay for the development of where we need to be focusing our attention.
Exactly. So we're going to send you back into the live presentation, and that's going to happen now. So question 4 is, what's the roadmap to getting TRESR to 1 million, 5 million, and 10 million yearly revenue milestones? I think I've mostly covered it, so I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's basically agency activations, creator infrastructure, which is the Shopify app plus the NFC gamification, and then the ecosystem's reward and long tail engagement that comes from that. These are the leaderboards. This is being able to go to agencies and say, look, we had 100,000 scans yesterday. That's the meaningful metric that allows us to pitch these really big brands. And the brands that we have in mind are the brands that I've worked with in the past as an agency lead. These are the music festivals, the film festivals, you know, the big Toyota campaigns. This is where we should ultimately end up, and we're stair-stepping our way into that because those brands are at stage 7 in our creator brand map. They're already at the international level, but they built their brand as a corporation that wasn't built on community. What's going to happen with AI? AI is coming on faster than anyone can even calculate, and in the next 5 years, we're going to be maybe not in a wholly post-scarcity world, but AI is going to provide such a lift to abundance, to productivity, to how we do things, that anybody's going to be able to spin up competitors to these large corporations. And the only way that these large corporations are going to be able to exist at the level that they have is by digging in and building community, building out an identity around it, and having a loyal fan base around them. They're going to need technology to do that, and we can be the mechanism that's perfectly placed over the next 5 years to allow them to transition from this Web 1, Web 2 model into something that is a more community-driven and activated model of doing business. So let's move down to rewards and buybacks, question 5. All right, is there a firm... I'm typing notes. I'm not doing... Oh yeah. I'll tell you when I need the slide move. I'm moving it on my end, and I forgot that I'm not controlling this. Question 5: is there a firm target or internal vote date to increase buybacks from 10% to 20 to 40%? So there's no firm vote date. But the idea of increasing buybacks is directly tied to how we manage profitability. I think I've done a pretty good job of showcasing how we plan to make the project profitable, but buybacks can only happen after we clear our hurdle rate, meaning that all core operating costs, dev, infrastructure, activations, etc., are covered. And so up to now, our monthly hurdle rate was in the $30,000, $40,000 range. We basically, just to run this custom platform, we had to have all these devs in the background that were playing whack-a-mole all the time. Now that we're moving away from that, we're reducing that burn rate, and now we're in a more manageable 12 to 15,000 range. We could probably get even lower than that, but we're holding space for that being the hurdle rate, because eventually we're going to have to get back up to that being the rate that we have to clear so that we can build out the things we need to build in Shopify. Once we're able to consistently clear that, and if you look at the past 18 months, we've cleared that quite often. I can't remember what the percentage rate is, but we've cleared 15,000 in revenue on a regular basis. You know, I think our highest month was 35,000 or something. So this is definitely doable once we get the marketing engine clicked back on. And then it becomes, how much of that extra money over the hurdle rate do we want to use to expand the team, to double down on developers, to increase developer time, to expand in new verticals, versus buying back the token? And I think this is something that, you know, we can use governance power maybe on a quarterly basis to assess. It can be an ongoing conversation. You know, and ideally we do get to a point where 20 to 30% is the norm, and maybe we set different profit milestones one of the things that we need to think about is maybe a rephrasing on a percentage of revenue versus a percentage of profit, because we get into trouble when we say 10% of all revenue. Well, 10% of all revenue when there's no profit means that we're going into a deficit. So we're going to have to probably tweak some of our language around this, but I think there can be profit milestones for, hey, when we get monthly recurring revenue at 25,000, of that recurring revenue, this month much is going to be going into the bonus pool. That's when it's going to become much easier, as we'll see later in this document, to identify what your APY on doing on investing into the LP and things like that are. So right now we're not profitable, so we're not doing buybacks, and I think that making this shift, identifying our sunk cost fallacy and cutting ties with it and moving back to a system that we can actually engage our marketing prowess on is going to allow us to get back to these levels where we can be doing buybacks again. But I don't have a clear timeline on it. Question 6. How sustainable is the current reward structure? Could it evolve? Could it evolve based on ecosystem growth? So we know the key rewards pool was always meant to be temporary. So once those emissions are out, that's going to be off. The name of the game, the reason we call it a DeFi game, is taking the rewards that come from the key rewards pool and deciding how you want to allocate those between the VE treasure lever, basically staking to earn VE treasure, and the LP. And so essentially your key reward should be paying for half of your LP or your stake into governance power, depending on how you're playing the game. And we know that voting power is one of the most powerful things in the platform, because voting power determines what the lever weights are in the bonus pool. So that's going to continue to be the way that things are set up, and the bonus pool will continue to be the mechanism for distributing those profits back to community members. However, there is going to be a new additional layer. We've been calling it bonus points. Maybe we'll call it that, maybe we won't. But it's going to be a flexible reward system that incentivizes participation and allows us to grow revenue because it's such sticky gamification. So these are all things that are still getting worked out. I hope over the next 30 to 90 days we can dial this in more. And again, we're trying to anchor this all back into the OGs, the key holders, the people who have kept the LP going. We want to make sure that all of this gets tied together in the right way, but we have to create a mechanism that lives beyond what we have in the DeFi game so that we can effectively scale and grow revenue, because without that revenue growth, the existing DeFi game isn't going to be able to distribute the value we want it to distribute. I think that covers most of this. You can go through this document and look at the nuance there, but key rewards will go until they go. Bonus pool will always be the mechanism for distributing buybacks, and bonus points will allow us to engage IRL actions in the real world. And we're going to have to think about how these are funded. Are they funded by the creator? Are they funded by sponsors? Are they funded by a portion of subscription fees? That's a TBD, to be determined. Question 7. Excuse me. What's the plan to make the NFC experience mainstream friendly for non-crypto users? So 1, great question. That's the whole plan. And the goal is simple: to make scanning feel like magic, not tech. Right now, the only incentive, let me take a drink of water. Hold on. I'm getting all worked up over here. The only incentive right now for scanning your sleeve is to get the digital twin. Now, we have seen that with the Vanya digital twin, Gribbly did a $700 airdrop to everybody that was holding the Vanya card. So that we're actively looking for partners to do more of that. We would like to, as a project, do more of that. So that with our existing tech, that's one way that we can incentivize claiming the digital twin. So make sure that you have your digital twin claimed, because we will be doing more of that. But once we actually have this system in place that we've been talking about for forever that incentivizes UGC content, getting people on the timeline, getting people engaging with the project, all of this is going to become sticky enough and abstracted away from the Web3 elements where anyone is going to be able to easily engage, because they're going to say, hey, I want to get that rewards app. It's not going to, there's going to be no part of them that has to call it a crypto app or a Web3 app. We want every single scan to initiate some kind of a prize, a secret message, a mission, or a collectible or a reward. And that creates the emotional payoff that makes people want to keep coming back. So Shopify plus scanning is kind of where we're heading. It's the e-commerce layer, and the scan system is going to be our existing scan system, but we have an API sync between our database that we use now, which is called Sanity, and Shopify. And so as we figure out what works, we'll figure out how to make that connection more strong, so that so that all of these reward systems are directly connected to the scan mechanisms. Again, it's going to be a little bit of a Turk machine with a man behind the curtain, likely me and Andrew, moving some of these pieces around until we can dial in the actual technical delivery. But from the front end, it's going to look the way that it needs to look. Shopify is going to handle the storefronts, orders, payouts, the multi-vendor thing, your commissions, your dashboard with all of your data. We'll partner with one of these apps in Shopify to be able to immediately deliver that once the new store is up and running. And then our existing system that we built is going to handle the NFC interactions, the missions, engagement, and we'll be slowly merging those two using the Shopify API and the new Shopify multi-channel platform, which is just an easier way for AI and databases to connect into Shopify. This is the piece that is new, this MCP server layer, and is going to allow us to do more of what we want to do. All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So Oni says, after achieving this level of success where 20-30% buybacks become common occurrence, are there potential scenarios that could force TRESR to reduce buyback percentages back down to 10%, or would it just solely be based off profit thresholds? I think what we're going to have to do, and open to discussion on this, is have some kind of budgetary time period that gets voted on by governance holders, where we say, okay, for this quarter, the buybacks are going to be at 30%. And so everybody can plan on the buybacks being 20% or 30% or whatever gets voted on based on what's approved as the budget for and I'm not necessarily talking about the entire budget. I'm talking about, hey, this is what's available for rewards. Do you want us to use it to develop this feature, or do you want it to be distributed back? Your governance power will be able to vote on that. And then for that quarter, you'll know what it is. And then we'll know going into the next quarter, there's going to be another vote. It'll probably be something like that. So yes, I think there is a scenario where, hey, this would be a really good thing for us to develop, and it'd be better if we developed it sooner or later. And this is the plan to do it, and this is how much it's going to cost. So do you want a distribution of 40% into the bonus pool, or would you rather that money fund this so that we can have it by the end of the month? It's going to be that type of conversation, likely.
Just to
yeah.
a little bit in on that as well. Like, personally, what I've seen, this is where things like what is going on. If there's an event that's happening and that's tied to your brand, and you have a GLSU going on, and you have the person who scanned it is the person who owns it, all of these little things would then determine going, great, ask it for their location as well. Are they in the GeoLasso? Here's the experience that shows up. If not, here's the other one. So it's that type of dynamics and mechanisms that needs to be built and tested, which will give exactly what you're looking for, but not just in a way of, well, now I got to move to this, now I got to move to that. And that would be painful as a brand.
Yeah, and I think there's a phased approach to this where, the ideal thing is to have all of this intent embedded into the scan and know exactly where to send someone, and that's the end goal. there's probably an earlier thing that looks more like a link tree that just allows somebody to add in URLs that when it gets scanned, one of them is to claim the NFT, one of them is to send you to your shop, and one of them is whatever affiliate link that you want on there. And so that would allow you to embed that Swole affiliate link in there. So we're going to have to think about the right phasing for that. But, the way Andrew answered it is the right way to think about it long term for sure.
It looks like we're heading down questions towards the NFC sides of things more than the actual business side. So do people want us to keep going with all the questions that were previously asked, or happy to go and read that separately and we focus more on these NFC ones? Or how does people want us to go right now?
Well, I think let's try to breeze through all of it. I mean, it's rare that we get this life of questions live here, so let's go through it. So Dash says, what can our NFC tech currently do? Let's say I want to run a pilot for a new marketing campaign around merch plus NFC. What can be done with the NFC? What can be done right now is somebody can scan it. They can claim a digital twin, and then you can airdrop to the wallet that claimed it. You can collect an email address, although we need to set up the permissions so that we're actually the user is actually giving permission for you to use it. But we do collect an email address, so then you could drip an email campaign to them, and through that we could ask them to submit something to social media, but then you would have to manually verify it. So basically, beyond claiming the NFC, and now having their email address and wallet address, you can use that to mix and match whatever you want to do beyond that to be able to reward them. But it's a manual process of, okay, we have to pull the wallet addresses, we have to airdrop it. I need to get with Gribbly and build out some documentation on how to airdrop to various NFCs based on the product. So that's basically where things are at right now. But there is no geo lasso right now, so there's no points for that. It basically, the way that we've been doing it is, if you wear your garment to an event, we scan it to see if it's real, like a human is scanning it to see that it's real. So it's a human being that's verifying that somebody's there. Can you customize the points, i.e. earn more for doing certain things? Well, you can airdrop whatever you want to the wallet. So in that way, you can customize the rewards. So, Gribbly gave a certain percentage of the Vanya lasagna supply to anyone with the Vanya card, and it ended up being about $700 worth of tokens to each of those wallets. Can you redeem the points at the store of the merch? Not yet, but that is something that one of the reasons that we decided to build a custom thing is because Shopify wouldn't let us do a points redeem in that way. They did not have a mechanism inside of Shopify to create store credit, which is what we needed. We needed somebody to be able to exchange points for store credit. 3 weeks ago, Shopify added a mechanism in their API that allows you to have store credit. So basically, one of the primary reasons for moving away from it is now available in Shopify. So the idea will be in the future that you can do that, but right now you can't. Does the user need to download a wallet, or can anything be done through the chip? So the other thing that the chip can do is just act as a relay. So you can redirect the chip to any link that you want. So one of the things that I did with my propaganda at Avalanche Summit is I just relayed it into a funnel, like a survey funnel, and then people could fill out those questions, and then I collected those leads. So we can turn any NFC chip into a relay into some kind of a funnel like that right now. Do they need a wallet? If they want to claim the NFC chip or the digital twin, and you want to be able to airdrop something to them, they need a wallet. But we use Dynamic Wallet to create an abstracted wallet, and they manage those private keys with their email address. So they don't actually need a crypto wallet, and they don't actually need to take private ownership of that wallet unless they want to. And what does the store need to get started with a campaign? you'll have to clarify that question for me because I'm not entirely sure. But I think basically what we need to have in the new store is basically a form that says, hey, do you want to run a campaign? Fill out this form, and then we can send you information on how to run whichever campaign you select in a drop down menu or something. Open to ideas on what that would look like. All right.
Just to summarize some of the stuff we've been talking about with this whole what we're doing within TRESR as a business model is that merch is obviously foundational. We don't get scans without merch, but it's not where our true value lies. Our true value lies in the scan proxy, the scan dynamics, and what happens from that, and what you can build as a brand on top of these whole scan dynamics with community engagement. And we're wanting to get back to focusing on that because that's our core offering and will be our core tech. Therefore, we have to burn off all of the technical debt we took on with building out our own shop because of the advice we received and all these reasons. But and it's not a fault thing, but rather that's where we were directed based on industry trends at the time. And now we're looking at going, nope, that wasn't the right decision. So how do we burn that down and bring it back to partnering with larger places that already have the stuff handled, allows us access more, which again is Shopify, and all of the stuff they've added in place literally in the last 3 weeks now allows us to really just go, great, how do we now move across to that and start getting some ins to drive sales on the merch sides of things so that we can reinvest it back into developers working on that, because that is will be our secret sauce.
Yeah. And I just want to drive home the point that e-commerce is changing. The way that you search the web is changing. I'm not entirely sure that in 3 years we're still going to have websites. Like, we're going through that big of a paradigm shift right now where everything is going to happen through an AI agent, and these agents are going to be visiting what's called an MCP server. It's basically an API for AI, and they're going to be pulling all the content through that, and people just aren't even going to visit websites. You can already go to ChatGPT and buy stuff on Shopify through ChatGPT without ever visiting the website. And so we want to prepare ourselves to be in a position to capitalize on that trend as it comes into play over the next 18 months. Question 8 is...
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, and owning that scan piece, which is an in real life thing, is what's really going to help.
Exactly, because if nobody's going to websites, how are businesses going to communicate with their teams or with their customers? They're going to be looking for new ways to incentivize that engagement, and we will have this really sticky layer that lives in the real world that allows them to do what they used to be able to do with things like Facebook and Google Ads. But when nobody's going to websites anymore, the way that advertising is going to shift is you're going to advertise in the AI layer. So you're going to run ads in ChatGPT. Most likely it'll be something like that. Or you're going to have to build out some kind of community connection with your customers, and we'll be perfectly poised to do that. Now, I know we've been saying for a year and a half that we're going to do that, but, you know, what coulda, woulda, shoulda doesn't move the needle. What it does do is we get to take all of that hard knocks learning and move it into this next phase, which allows us to move more quickly. And the features that we plan on bringing forth, and we'll do it through third-party apps if we have to in order to bring these to market more quickly, is creator missions and UGC challenges. Like I said, the biggest thing that people want when we talk about these larger event activations is they want to turn t-shirts into Twitter timeline content. And so there's plenty of partnerships that we can white label and use to make that something that is available very quickly so that we can get back to selling these larger activations, which is where most of our revenue is coming from anyway. Content unlocks and interactive drops. This is also something that we all know intimately is where we want the tech to go. And so now that our focus isn't playing whack-a-mole in an e-commerce thing, maybe we can actually get some of this stuff to the surface so that it lives on top of the NFC. loyalty mechanics and streaks. I was reading a great article today talking about how streaks and showcasing how much of a process is incomplete are the most effective ways to drive behavior. Because if you open if you scan something or you open up your phone and it says, ooh, 15% incomplete, there's this drive to want to complete that. And this is part of the gamification for how we get people to scan on a regular basis, similar to how Reddit does their streaks, and how we get people to actually build out a brand by taking all of this internal knowledge that we have and surfacing it through a gamification layer. And that's where the whole bonus point system comes in. We still need to figure out what the mathematics behind that look like, but it will come in time. So, next question. What is your strategy to protect TRESR from copycat competitors at the NFC merch as the NFC merch model gains traction? So we've already talked about this ad nauseum, but I'll just repeat it. We're not focused on protecting an idea or a technology. We're focused on perfecting an experience. There's all kinds of companies that at varying levels of quality that you can get to do an NFC scan. We're one of the few that allow you to do an NFT claim, but that is a relatively simple idea to put together. The thing that isn't simple is building out the incentive structure and creating the psychological drivers. We already have those. We've been working on those for a year and a half. So it's just actualizing those psychological drivers, what we know is going to work through actual tech. And that's the UGC missions, the creator dashboards, the scan rewards. All of that is about perfecting an experience. And even if somebody, knocks off the NFC tech, they're not going to be able to perfect that experience because it's about the psychological meta layer of the tech. Yeah, I wrote a bunch here about why moving back to Shopify is the right move. I think I've already explained it for the most part, but the biggest thing is that Shopify is now on the leading edge of AI. They're going to leave everybody else behind, and we can't get left behind. We have to be on the ride for this as the train leaves the station, and it is very early days of this. Most people have no idea that these AI things have been activated inside Shopify because you still have to connect into it through an MCP agent or using something like N8N. But this is going to become commonplace. Every single website in the future is going to have an MCP server so that AI can connect with it. And rather than having to spend all of the time to try to figure out how we're going to bake into this new paradigm shift, let's just get on the bandwagon with Shopify and figure out how, as they grow by millions of users every single month, let's figure out how to carve out a small percentage of that pie now that they've released the Web3 e-commerce kit and all of these things that we needed a year ago, but they didn't have. All right. How are you planning to onboard new brands or creators into the TRESR ecosystem? It's going to happen naturally once all this stuff that we've talked about is in place. And shifting from having to manage our own e-commerce store, which has been an incredibly laborious and unsatisfying experience, to being able to just build out the gamification as a layer on top of Shopify allows us to move much.
Sorry, what question you on? I got lost.
No, I'm on question 11. Yeah. So anyhow, the idea is to move faster by borrowing off of the existing Shopify apps that exist that are taking advantage of some of this AI stuff. My audit showcases that for about $1,600 a month, we can basically build everything that I just spoke about. It's going to be piecemealed together. There's going to be a Turk machine element to it where Andrew and I are running back and forth behind the scenes to make things happen, but it will work and it will allow us to have enough of a proof of concept to sell these activations. Then we'll reverse engineer that, strip everything down to the core, and build out the TRESR app on top of our NFC API. That creates the recurring revenue. We make the creator journey feel like a game. If you're curious about the detail of how we're thinking about all this, you can click through to the creator brand journey that's in this document. This is something that Andrew and I have been working on to just kind of figure out psychologically what are all these different phases, and then we'll make those stickier as we attach points, gamification, badges, etc. to that. And then really the goal to growing is prioritizing breakout case studies. So we don't need 10,000 creators to join the platform. We need 10 creators to win so hard that everybody else wants to be a part of it. And so that's why we're focusing on a handful of people that we're building out case studies for, because once the escape velocity is hit for those, few creators, then it becomes easy to onboard other people because we have something to point at. All right, what is your monthly burn rate and how long is the current runway? There is no runway. We are, our monthly expenses are covered by treasure key sales, OTC token swaps, if we have e-commerce revenue from that, and mostly right now from personal capital that's reinvested by Andrew and I from some of our other ventures. Our current burn is around $12,000 to $15,000 a month. That's a major reduction from the $30,000 to $40,000 a month that we were spending during peak development. That is what it is, and now we'll run leaner. Key sales fund the majority of ongoing operations. Andrew and I are bridging the gap when it's needed, which it is needed right now, and bulk merch sales have been where most of our revenue has come from for several months now. And the OTC token sales. I'll bold this too. Tram and his team have been doing an incredible job helping us figure out things on the DeFi side for the OTC marketplace, the daycare, getting all the gelato stuff squared away. So shout out to Tram and his team as well. Regarding the Pearl key mechanics, those are in place, obviously. The goal was that it would meaningfully increase key sales. It didn't, so it didn't really pay for itself short term, but long term, it is going to be really good for the ecosystem. We've burned, I think almost 15% of the supply at this point, in addition to what we had already burned. So we're close to 25% of total treasure supply burned now. That creates a huge reduction on sell pressure in the future. So ultimately, I'm glad that we did it. It just didn't create the increase in key minting that we thought it would. Some people minted, and that was useful. That was valuable. Helped us pay some of the bills, but it wasn't at the level that we thought it might be. And fine, the lesson is that demand has to be tied to additional product value, revenue coming into the ecosystem, not just a shift in token mechanics. All right, question 13. Are there plans to raise external capital or grants? Yes, for sure to grants, maybe to external capital, but we've shifted our thinking on that a little bit. So we're continuing to pursue strategic grants, especially as we explore how Avalanche, their L1 system can support the next layer of treasure. So when we talk about bonus points, we're still thinking, is an L1 the right move? With this latest rise in gas prices from Avalanche on the C chain, it's making an L1 seem more attractive. An L1 costs around $3,000 a month to run in its early stages. That wasn't an expense that seemed responsible when gas fees were basically non-existent in January. Now our gelato bill is, ratcheting up rather quickly. So does it make sense to move the DeFi game, our scan rituals, and our new bonus points onto an L1? Potentially. And so if there's a grant there, that makes that an easier decision, but that would be something that we would move into community governance if we decided to do that.
Just to give an idea, gelato size of things, our budget that we had per month, we've been burning through daily, every so often. Like as the gas fees go up and down, there's been days where we just burn through the whole month's budget in a day, and just profit.
Super annoying, and so we're going to have to vote pretty soon on what we do about that. And the interim solution is probably going to be that we're going to have to add an AVAX fee back into the treasure boxes the way that we used to have it last year. and then that will buy us enough time and allow us to be sustainable enough to figure out if moving to an L1 is the right move. When it comes, yeah, go ahead.
Just on the capital sides of things, the reason not to go down the traditional VC route is that a lot of VCs, they're more transactional in how they operate. They have, their product is their money. So they put their money in, they're expecting an exit out, and aren't necessarily investing for what's in the best interest of the whole vision and the community and the elements further forwards. They obviously want to see that successful because that's how they get the money out. But their interests and their priorities are then potentially have a conflict of interest in comparison to the founders, the community, and everyone going further forwards. And in regards to external capital, technically we are. John and I are bringing our own external capital in to get it, keep it going. So the reason why we're not looking down that path is if we're going to bring someone in, it wouldn't just be the money, because it would potentially derail things even further.
Yeah. And we made a mistake of listening to too many VCs. They're the ones who, kind of sold us on we should be the Shopify for Web3. That was misguided, I think. And so maybe at the time it was the right move, but the entire narrative around Web3 as an industry is shifting to Web3 as invisible technology that lives under community-led businesses. But we're still talking to VCs. We're still talking to big partners. It just wouldn't, if we did it, it wouldn't look like a traditional VC deal now. It would be them coming in as a community member and buying keys like everybody else.
Yeah. Create a system that everybody can participate in, and then when we get someone who can do more, well, then they just do more in the same realms, and that makes it fairer.
All right, so let's go to the LP growth forecast. So question 14 is, with JLP being 30% of rewards, what's your projection for how large the Treasure AVAX LP could grow by the end of the year or next bull cycle? Is 200K JLP achievable? 200K JLP is absolutely achievable, especially as we have these scan to win campaigns and buybacks going into the bonus pool and recurring revenue from the Shopify app. All of that brings real demand into the system. And, especially when the key rewards supply cap is reached, this drop off in treasure price is going to disappear, or be greatly reduced in how much it happens, because there's just not going to be rewards to get sold into the LP anymore. And so I put together some loose projections. Take these with a grain of salt. Certainly nothing here doctrine, but if monthly platform revenue is $25,000 at the current TVL and treasure price, with I put 33% going to JLP stakers, it's actually 30%. If we did a 10% buyback on a $25,000 revenue month, it'd basically be a 21.6% APY on your add to TVL, up to at 40% an 86.2 APY. So this is because these are backed by real revenue. There's actually an input of money from outside the system coming in. And so I think that as we get recurring revenue, and that's why I think the Shopify model of having a monthly fee makes a lot of sense, because what it allows us to do is attract more liquidity by saying, hey, we've got $25,000 a month in coming in every single month from subscriptions. That means that at a minimum, $2,500 of that is going into the pool, which means that your LP investment is going to get you a 21% APY. If we can effectively project that better, I think that we can grow the LP significantly, especially once we've hit the treasure supply cap. So when the key reward supply cap, or when the treasure supply cap as a whole hits that cap, the daily sale pressure disappears, the buybacks begin fueling consistent demand, net flow flips from selling into the LP to buying from the LP, and price can stabilize or appreciate so that the LP is no longer absorbing all of the dilution of people selling their rewards. That makes that makes holding a position in the LP significantly more attractive. And you can see that 1,000. If we did at this moment in time, if there's $25,000 in revenue, and somebody put $1,000 into the LP, that means that they'd own 1/46 of the total pool. That'd be 53.89 a month in treasure from the buybacks that they'd be getting, which is $646 a year, or 64.7% APY. Again, these numbers change on a daily basis as price change, as the price of AVAX changes. If AVAX and Treasure both skyrocket in the future, which who knows if they will, but even if they return to the local high of the last year at $60, then these numbers become significantly more meaningful. So it's hard to accurately project when the price of Treasure and the price of AVAX is so volatile, but this is what it will look like, and I think we'll be able to better project it in the future as we have recurring revenue coming in. All right, I think that's all I have to say about that. Could it grow beyond 200,000? Yeah, for sure. I think 500,000 to 1 million, once we're at supply cap, is easily doable, especially if the price of AVAX is going back up to 60 or beyond. Yeah, and then Prez asked about international expansion and custom print shops. It's really hard for us to justify the expense for an international print shop, mostly because it means that we have to buy extra NFC chip revenue and label revenue, or label inventory and NFC chip inventory, which is just anywhere from a $10,000 to $15,000 expense to be able to hold enough revenue at each shop. So in order to justify moving into one of these areas, we really need to be in these order ranges for it to be a meaningful investment for us. Now, as we grow revenue, maybe we lower these numbers. Also, I want to experiment. One of the experiments I've been wanting to do that we haven't been able to effectively run in our custom shop, that we'll be able to do as we switch to Shopify, is subsidizing international shipping. So basically saying, okay, we know we're going to make this much profit on this product. So if somebody orders it from Turkey and the shipping is $90, and we know that we're going to make 20, let's lower the shipping to 70, or let's lower the shipping to 50, and see if there's a higher conversion rate on international orders. Because if there is, then maybe it makes more sense to open up some of these regional shipping places. But I think based on a lot of back and forth that I did with ChatGPT, I think, and what our profit margins are, I think these are the right numbers to think about when we should open a custom shop in some of these other areas. Any other thoughts on that, Andrew?
Yeah, like all these things that you're talking about are the elements that we're looking at within the business model and considering within it. So these are the angles that we're having to think about and look at how, what are the different elements that we need to test in order to make it work. But yeah, as like when you were talking about the subsidizing of the shipping is what I'm talking about, is that's a part of the business model that we're considering and testing. Yet when it comes to the international shipping sides of things and being able to have a place, we really need to have a partner within that realms as well. And for instance, what we got in the US is Nick. And John's actually invested into some of Nick's business to get him the equipment needed for us to actually be able to run the stuff through it. So that's the level that we went to with Nick. And we have to consider, do we need to go to that level to maintain the consistency and the quality that we need? Like, these are the little intricacies that we have to consider as we're working with them as well. So potentially finding someone who can do it, who will also prioritize us and deliver the experience that we're after. Because is an idiom that I came up with a while back, which is customers come for result and stay for experience. Therefore, everything you do in your business is to deliver the result at a standard that facilitates the experience. Therefore, anyone that we partner with must be heading towards that same experience as us. Otherwise, it drags the experience down for us, which then drags it down for everything. So we're looking at every little piece of this as we're going along with it as well.
Yeah, and things that could shift this, quickly. I see Jotunheimer here in the chat, and so I was talking about this meme coin, the Turbo token, and this huge community that they have, and this partnership that we're exploring where we can have some of their creators come in and design here in TRESR, and we can help them create some of these activations and have our community engage with their community and back and forth. Well, they have 114,000 people on Twitter. If we do a live stream on their Twitter page, which is something that we've been talking about doing, and all of a sudden there's 1,000 international orders, well, maybe it makes more sense to take that data and solve for some of the international shipping stuff sooner than later. We send all over the world as it is. It's just expensive depending on what these new tariff rates are. To give you an idea, we can ship to the UK usually for $20 in shipping, but in Turkey that has 100% tariff, or it may even be 130% now. It can cost $100 to ship to Turkey, and so there's massive volatility happening in the international shipping space right now. We've been burned a little bit because of it, and we're trying to effectively navigate it with some of our shipping consultants and tools that we use. But it is one of those things that we're having to play by ear because the landscape changes every 3 weeks right now. And so until some of that balances out, I do think that it's going to get to a good place where the tariffs are manageable across all countries. But we're not at that place yet. And so we just have to look at where are our orders coming from and what makes sense for us to invest funds into in order to amplify conversions.
What are we noticing with the trends within the case study ventures?
Yeah. And also shout out to Dash because he's been helping me explore this with some buddies of his in Egypt that have a really cool shop there. And so there's all kinds of possibilities around this that we could activate when it makes sense, but we have to be smart about when the right fiscal moment is. I think that's the last of the questions, right?
Yeah, you said short-term plan and final thoughts.
Yeah, that was around the international shipping stuff, and I think I covered most of it. So, unless there's anything else that somebody wants to drop in the chat, I think that is our discussion for today. I appreciate you staying longer than the hour that we had originally scheduled out, but hopefully this gave some meaningful insight into how we're thinking about things and how we're looking to take a step back in order to accelerate a little bit faster around the gamification. So if you do have questions that come up because you're watching the recording or you didn't get a chance to drop them into the chat, just drop them into the general chat and we can continue the conversation as always. Any closing thoughts, Andrew?
I think the main closing thought is just to reiterate that we're shifting away from focusing on that whole, how do I put it? It's like the whole BC route thing where we're getting that advice from. Yes, revenue is important and we have to drive for that, but we need to focus on value and value delivery. And that by focusing on that, revenue gets sorted out automatically with the right business models. And that's why we're having these shifts across and realigning everything to the ethos of what TRESR stood for from the beginning.
Yep. So I'm going to switch to the stage on my computer so that I can stop the recording, but that's going to be it for today. I appreciate everybody showing up and everybody listening on the recording, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.